This is AM Agenda. Thanks for your company with me this morning, Steve Ciobo and Brendan O'Connor. Steve Ciobo, first to you. What's your reaction to these latest ongoing raids? Obviously, it's too hard to be definitive given they're still happening, but
sure.
Another concerning development, I guess.
Well, I mean, what it reinforces is that our intelligence and police agencies are doing outstanding work. This morning's raids are a continuation of efforts by our intelligence agencies and by the police to make sure that we remain on the front foot, remain vigilant against the threat that potentially exists against Australians domestically as well as abroad. So I think it's a good outcome.
Well, it shows, again, the agencies working together. Sure. Brendan O'Connor, you're a former minister in this area.
Yep.
Do you think that there's any argument for a super agency, as has been floated? There'd been a lot of speculation around the place that the government was heading in that direction, a Homeland Security or Home Affairs.
Look, that's
agency.
been under consideration, I think, by both sides of politics on occasion. I think you always have to review how your agencies work. They have to work very closely. As Steve said, they're working closely with this operation now. They've worked very effectively in the past, so you don't necessarily have to merge agencies to combat organised crime, combat terrorism, but you need to ensure that you've got the right level of cooperation, the right information sharing between and amongst agencies. That's all very important.
Do you think that's happening now?
Well, look, I think, as the former minister who had many of those agencies under my portfolio, they are very professional. It's not to say that we can't look at improving. What I would hate to think is that we would create a super portfolio for the sort of ambitions and ego of Scott Morrison. That would be the wrong thing. But certainly, if it's about improving the efficacy, effectiveness of the way in which we operate, the way we protect our citizens and our nation, then it should be considered. But I just say this: if there were moves in that direction, we'd have to make sure we have sufficient parliamentary oversight over the operations of those agencies.
Professor Michael Wesley from the ANU, National Security Professor, he's going to be joining me after 9 o'clock on the show, but he is scathing of this idea, says it will reduce our security readiness, and it's clear that Julie Bishop is not a fan either. The front page of The Australian suggesting that she's strongly pushed back against this idea internally.
I just think people need to have a big tall glass of cool water, Kieran, and calm down, because this is just speculation. The government's ordered a review into the efficacy and operations of our intelligence and police services. I'm not going to get too worked up about media speculation or other speculation about what's going to happen. Likewise, Brendan's gratuitous comment about Scott Morrison, completely unnecessary, just petty political
very
points.
Credible.
Well, just
very
petty,
credible.
just petty political point scoring. But I think most Australians realise that the government's going to make a decision that's in our national interest. We're not going to turn around and make decisions that suit a particular whim or might be particularly fashionable one way or another.
Is politics getting into Labor's response to the national security laws, in the sense that you're not picking every fight? The suggestion in a couple of reports today is that you're just picking your battles. You don't want to make national security a political battleground.
No, I don't think so. I think our history has always shown, our Labor history has shown, that we understand that the number one priority of a national government is the security of the nation and its citizens.
Are you comfortable, though, with the security laws as they pertain to journalists?
Well, can I just make the point, and this has been said by the Prime Minister as well, that we do not surrender our principles of freedom and democracy in order to fight terrorism. And I think this is the tension that we have to be very careful about, the tension between, on one hand, giving sufficient powers to agencies, and on the other, protecting the freedoms that we're actually defending. I mean, it would be rather paradoxical if we surrendered them all in the fight.
Well, specifically, one issue that's got a bit of attention the last few days is the way that the ASIO security agency's legislation impacts on journalists, reporters and whistleblowers, 10 years in jail
I think that's
for reporting ASIO
that's
operations.
A big issue, and I think that's something that we have to be very careful about. Of course, journalists are going to write it up and say it's an adverse thing. I'll just make this point. When I was the Minister for Home Affairs, there was a raid that involved more than 400 police, AFP, ASIO, New South Wales and other state agencies, and there was a front page story before the raid had happened, even though that newspaper had been asked not to publish the details of the raid. In my view, that was irresponsible journalism to put it in harm's way not only those police but also citizens. So I think I'd say this: if you want to make sure that the media have sufficient freedom to report, they also have to be responsible about not reporting matters that could endanger the lives of people. Now, there was one incident when I saw a paper not acting in the interests of the public, or indeed in relation to that raid responsibly.
That's an incident Brendan O'Connor refers to there, one incident, but of course there are many other incidents and reports over the years through whistleblowers via the media that have been appropriate in terms of accountability for our security agencies. Are you worried that this legislation introduced by the Attorney General is tipping the balance? 10 years in jail for those who report on intelligence operations?
No, I'm not, Kieran. And the reason I'm not is because when you look at the actual factual operation of it, there's several points to recognise. The first is that these new provisions effectively mirror provisions in the Crimes Act already. Secondly, this only is relevant in relation to special intelligence operations. Now, they're different to intelligence operations. Special intelligence operations, and to give you an example, Kieran, it's illegal currently under the law to be involved with a terrorist organisation. Now, obviously, if we're going to have an undercover agent that's infiltrating an intelligence organisation, for example, they have got to be receiving special ability or effectively an exemption from that law so that they can actually be involved with that terrorist organisation without feeling the full weight of the criminal law coming against them. That's a special intelligence operation. Now, obviously, if that was to be reported, if details were to be reported, then that would understandably put that particular agent's life at risk. So this is only in relation to special intelligence operations. It doesn't apply to intelligence operations where the prohibition only exists against those in the intelligence community and contractors. So it's important to understand that. And as I said, it largely mirrors a provision in the law as it currently stands already.
I want to finish on, I've only got a bit over a minute left, but quickly, as a former immigration minister, claims of sexual abuse from women and children on Nauru. This is very, very disturbing this morning.
Any claim of such a nature is disturbing, and those allegations should be investigated immediately, and I'm sure that the government will have the same view, that you need to respond to those allegations. I'm not sure whether there's substance to them, but they are so serious that they warrant a response, and I would hope and I imagine that the government will be doing exactly that.
Right. And well, I guess that
that's the
Minister
case.
will do that.
That is the case, Kieran. We've commenced undertaking a review. The department's going to be undertaking the review and doing the necessary investigations into it.
Okay, Steve Ciobo, Brendan O'Connor. We're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks.
A quick break, back in just a moment with the National Security Professor from the ANU, Michael Wesley.